Welcome to chapter 12. This is the chapter in which we finally meet a past tense form. But before we get to that, first we have some words on some adjective or derivational suffixes used to form adjectives from nouns. We're looking at two different ones, one of which is new, one of which is not. First, a se, a so, a se, with three vowel harmonic variations, is used to create a locational or temporal relationship to the base form. Usually a noun can also be an adjective, an adverb in some case. So if we have yal, a village, yalase is of the village, in the village, or so, and such. And if we have tengeche, yesterday, tengechese is yesterday's, like yesterday's paper or whatnot. Yeah, some irregularities in forming adjectives from this stem and some usage example, like tengechese gazette, yesterday's paper, erlase igeche, from erla, tomorrow, tomorrow's weather, yalase ilish, village life, the life of the village. Then we have the adjectival derivational suffix an, which we already met. This is a so-called, this creates possessive adjectives, adjectives denoting that something has something, like vud, water, vudan, watery. And as we've discussed already, it's somewhat comparable to English e, but it is more widely used. Yeah, like if we have lat kokkensche numeran pert, the number 12 house, the house with the number 12. Like, I mean, ironically, I can use e in English like this too, just you wouldn't. Okay, denominational adverbs, another look at instructive forms in N, which we have seen several times already, but now we're looking at it halfway systematically, how we, from nouns and adjectives, can form adverbs with this. If we have sei, good, we have seien, well. If we have schocksche, warm, schockschen, warmly, schuldo, cheap, schulden, cheaply. The formation is exactly the same as in the genitive. And there are actually some debates about the etymological relationship between these two. And yeah, now that we can form adverbs productively, how do we form comparative forms? Like once we have seien, well, how do we make a comparative form of that? Well, it's a bit tricky, because we have here seien, the adverb, and now we can either attach the rak to this and have seien rak. So well, and then the comparison, or we can do it the other way around, sei raken, that we first attach the comparative degree marker and then the instructive. And yeah, the superlative is easy again because it precedes the whole thing, so en seien is the best as an adverb. Yeah, here you see some usage examples. Okay, now we come to the past tense one, and this is it's a tricky one to form, especially in comparison to how comparatively rarely you use it, because this is something where you have to be careful. In spite of the name, in spite of it being called a simple past tense one, it is not the most basic past tense form to use. That would be the simple past tense two. In doubt, use simple past tense two. It's way more commonly used. There are some situations in which the simple past tense one suggests itself, or there are some situations even where you can only use this. We'll look at that later. Doesn't make sense to contrast two past tense forms if we have only met one of them now. It is labeled as simple past tense form one because it is the older one. This goes back to reflexes from, to forms from the proto language, and we have cognate forms of the markers of the past tense in throughout the language family, also in the Baltic Finnic languages. And I said markers, plural, because we have a different marker of the past tense in the first and the second conjugation. So the first and second conjugation in the simple past tense one are completely different. And we have to learn them completely separately because one has nothing to do with another. In the first conjugation, here by standard, I mean, this is without any strange stuff happening. If we have stems like ludash, words like ludash, to read, with stem lut, tunemash, stem tum, tunem, study, ujash, to invite, stem ush. Here you see on the left-hand side what the suffixes are that you attach to it. And this that we have, like in ludum I read, this is cognate with the I that you have as as a past tense marker, for example, in Finnish, when you have like tulen, I come, tulin, I came. Yeah. So here is then the formation. Be careful in the third person singular that you have vowel harmonic alternation. Yeah. If we have stems ending in l or in n, we have the stem is palatalized. So the final sound comes palatal, but not in the first person singular and plural. And here, be wary of what we discussed at the very beginning when looking at the writing systems. The manner in which palatalness of sounds is marked depends on the following, on the sound that follows it. So it's going to look different depending on if we have an e or an o coming after it. So give it a think, and here we go. So you can see that with nelash, to swallow, we don't see the palatalness of the sound, but with tolio, from tolash, to come, there we do see it. It's just orthography doing its thing. And to be is a verb here that has an exception from the exception. So we have a stem change from ul to il in the past tense. And the L is palatalized, it becomes palatal, as we would expect, but the exception of the exception is that in this case, it is palatal also in the first person singular and plural. So this rule you just had to learn here is an exception from that. So yeah, that's tricky. And then we also have the process that we have, remember how whenever we have endings attached to a verbal stem of the first conjugation that end in a consonant, that we have to have some a stem simplification or stem alternation if we otherwise would get a sound combination that phonotactics wouldn't allow. Yeah, and that happens here, but it only happens in the first person plural and first and second person plural, because only there do the endings start in the consonant. So give it a think, and here we go. Okay, here. So conjugation to, on the other hand, is comparatively simple. Here we have the ending sh for the past tense marker. This is cognate, for example, with the Mansi past tense mark that we have in S. Surprisingly, it is not cognate with the S as a past tense marker in Baltic Finnic languages, like in Estonian kaisin, from kaima, to go, I went. That is secondary, that came about from the sound chain of T to SE in Finnic languages. But even if it's etymologically not connected, if you know Finnish or Estonian, this can help you remember it, possibly. Okay, so here we just have sh as a past tense marker, and then we put the ending afterwards. And yeah, we have no irregularities or anything like that in the second person, in the second conjugation. It's easy here and predictable, straightforward. Okay, about the usage of the past simple past tense 1, we'll get back to this once we have met the simple past tense 2, but it is especially used for things that happened in the past and were carried out to their end, and especially for things that happened just now, very recently. If you just saw like a bottle fall over, you say, "Yeah, the bottle fell over," and if you're reporting something as it happens, basically, then you would have to use a simple past tense 1, whereas simple past tense 2 is more used for things that are even further back in the past. And yeah, we'll look, once we have met simple past tense 2, we're going to look at this contrastively. Words and word usage. What have we got? Moshtash, to be able to. Well, we already met verb kertash, to be able to. Why do we need another one? Well, in some cases, they can both be used. Like if I can say mi marla luden mosh kertam, I can read more mi marla luden moshtem, or on moshto. The difference between these two is that moshtash is used in reference to a learned ability, a skill that you have acquired. So in this case, you can say you can consider them equivalent, because kertash is the universal being able to do stuff. But there are contexts where moshtash is not permissible. Like, for example, if you say, my eyes are hurting today and I can't read because of this eye pain, you have to use kertash here in this situation, because your eyes hurting you doesn't magically remove the learned skill that you have. Pochesh after a postposition, literally this is the later form of poch, the tail, so into the tail. We have met this in the serialization of things like telepochesh, motolesh, after winter, what comes then? We had that in chapter 9 when Anush was talking about the seasons with the kindergarten teacher. But it can also be used to say according to, following what. If you know German, this might not surprise you, because German nach can do the exact same thing, nach welchen Rezepte or something like that. Yeah, just have to learn this as a secondary usage of pochesh. Bara, then. Here it is worth remembering that bara can also be a particle with a poorly defined, or poorly defined means hard to define usage. It's like sometimes like then can in English also occur. So like here, if we say, so how did your party go yesterday? Then we say bara, and then the rest is bara, then. It is not actually, it's not used for temper structuring or anything like that. So read it like if you have a va at the beginning of a sentence here, like you'd have a then at the end of the sentence in English, and don't try to avoid reading a literal meaning into it. Salam lash, to greet and to congratulate, two meanings that it has. Some notes about this. So it can be like just to greet, something like greeting the guests, very straightforward in its usage. And it can also be congratulating somebody on an occasion. So, and if you congratulate someone on an occasion by its government, it wants dene with. This seems to be a very clear copy from Russian. So if I wish you a happy birthday, I'm literally greeting you with your birthday. It's just the government of the verb, and as it is in Russian. And just as it is the case in Russian, if you are wishing somebody a happy new year, for example, or new year being in the Russian context, the sort of the Christmas counterpart, literally the whole sentence would be U I dene salam lem, I greet you with the new year. But once you have said U I dene already, people know the rest, because that's the only context in which you say with the new year, so you can skip it. So you often just say U dene with the new year, and that's it. And this works exactly like in Russian. In Russian, you'd say s Novym godom, like with the new year, and that's the whole phrase. You can omit the part that everybody knows that there's supposed to be a verb still afterwards that is demanding the with by its government. Koyash, to seem to appear. This is like looking from the side of the thing that is being looked at, and it can be used in various functions that go in that direction. It can be like somebody looking like somebody, resembling somebody. It can be something being seen, like flags are seen on the street. And it can also just be that something appears in a color, for example, oftentimes then with an instructive form of the color term, like Chodra u jargon koyesh, the forest is appearing greenly. That's basically what it's saying. Okay, the next one is not a problem if you know German, for example. It is a problem if you're coming just from English. The word Rezept can be recipe, after which you cook something, or prescription that you get from your doctor to get something from a pharmacy, just like German Rezept has both of these meanings. So don't get those two meanings mixed up. So that gets us to the text. This time, Yelu is meeting with her friend Zoya, and they're talking about cookery and the baking episode that comes next week. So, and as per usual, there are some exercises to do, and the song of the week this week is Pazar Korno, as performed by Elvira Tuktasheva and Natasha Pushkina, a song about the way to the market. Okay, see you next week when we bake.